What happens if Palantir doesn't get the $611 million NHS deal? Now, I know it sucks to have to talk about this, especially when Palantir is down from 20 bucks to about 15 bucks on its recent earnings, but this is something we do have to discuss. I believe the decision should be coming out in the fall. At least that's what the NHS has said over the past 8 months. So by September, October, we should have a decision. And I wanted to make this video to kind of put into perspective what would happen if we don't get the deal. Now, two things before we start. Number one, I've been pretty bullish on this deal, and in this video, I'm going to outline my reasons for why I've been bullish on this deal. I think this is a no-brainer for the NHS to give this to Palantir. I think it makes all the logical sense in the world. I think we are the best candidate to get the $611 million deal. But granted, logic and rationality sometimes don't take into account the nature of politics. And so I have been on the record saying it is vital and crucial that Palantir gets this deal, and it makes sense for them to get this deal, but I could be wrong on that. Number two, for those that don't know what the NHS deal is, it is the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. It is a socialized healthcare system, nationalized healthcare system, so there is no private healthcare. It's just one system. It is in charge of 67 million people's healthcare in the UK. It is one of the largest healthcare systems in the world that is nationalized, and for the past 20 years, they've lost about $10 billion in IT expenses that has resulted in inefficiencies and essentially ineffectiveness when it comes to actually treating patients in regards to backlogs, wait times, etc. In the United States, you can, schedule an appointment and reasonably get an appointment within a day, maybe 2 days, maybe a week tops. But because of the privatized healthcare system we have in the United States, it's actually much more easier to get healthcare, even if that healthcare isn't the best. In the United Kingdom, it's a lot more difficult and bureaucratic to get healthcare, even if they guarantee healthcare to all citizens. So Palantir wants to be the system to be able to help them out. They are in the running to get a $611 million contract, I believe, over 5 years. And this will essentially create a federated data platform, which will essentially ontologize, centralize all of the data that the NHS has for patients, for hospitals, etc. All the administrative stuff, all the legal stuff, put it all together in one. Palantir has been able to do this with Tampa General Bay Hospital, the Cleveland Clinic. They've been able to power 13% of beds in the United States in regards to hospitals. So it's a no-brainer that they're able to do this for the NHS, but this would be the national digital data platform for the NHS in regards to healthcare. Now, what happens if Palantir doesn't get it? Well, first, let's talk about why Palantir wouldn't get this deal. What's the logic for them not getting this deal? And then we'll talk about kind of what would happen if they don't get it. There's a couple of reasons why they might not get the deal. Number one, the propaganda is still too strong in the United Kingdom. So for those that don't know, Palantir does not have the best reputation in the UK, even though they've developed a headquarters in the UK, even though they have a majority of their workforce in the UK. The problem in the UK is that there are various organizations funded by various billionaires, one of them being Foxglove, that has spewed a lot of propaganda around what Palantir is, what their mission is, what they're trying to do, and overall how they engage with sensitive data. It is the theory of a lot of these publications in the UK that unfortunately have a lot of influence. I remember the UK is the home of the King, the Queen, the Prince, Harry, and Meghan. I mean, they're on the tabloids every single day. So UK media and tabloids is a whole different level when it comes to content and ultimately manipulating and persuading the public's mind. Palantir is seen as an evil data spy company that is going to steal your data and exploit it for commercial gain. Now, this is a ridiculous assumption. We've done countless videos on the channel for why this is stupid. Palantir is not stealing your data. Palantir is not in the business of stealing your data. Palantir doesn't even get to monetize your data through advertising like Google, Amazon, or Facebook, so it's hilarious that these claims happen. Palantir is in the business of optimizing data by creating the picks and shovels, i.e. the software, in order for an organization to use proprietary data to be able to make more effective decisions. In the context of healthcare, obviously these are decisions that can affect life or death, make an entire system more efficient and effective, etc. So the narrative itself is stupid. I think Palantir has not done the best job in terms of combating the narrative. They've tried. I'll give them that. They have really tried. But in the UK, I mean, I can't even blame them. You're fighting an entire media press that is against you. And so for that reason, that is one of the main reasons for why the propaganda might be too strong, to the point where even though Rishi Sunak, who I believe is a techno-optimist, who's the PM of the UK, that wants Palantir, that wants technological solutions, that wants his legacy to be fixed or to be set in stone by fixing the NHS, even he may succumb to the pressure of the propaganda that exists around Palantir. And if that's the case, we're not getting this deal. It's just not going to happen because the propaganda is too strong. So one of the first core reasons is that because the propaganda is too strong, the public buy-in is not going to be enough, and then Rishi Sunak is not going to be able to unilaterally campaign for Palantir because he's just one PM. At the end of the day, the UK is a democracy. If the majority don't want Palantir, Palantir is not going to win. So that's the first reason. The second reason is the platform that the UK is trying to build for the NHS just might be split up. And this is something that has been rumored for a while, that the United Kingdom might feel they don't want to give Palantir all of the data, all of the reins to the kingdom, essentially, you can say. And as a result of that, they would split up the contract. So Palantir would get a certain portion of it. It's definitely not going to be 611 million. Another company would get a certain portion. Maybe other UK tech companies would get a certain portion. UK tech companies were really campaigning on the United Kingdom to do this because they basically felt that Palantir had an unfair procurement advantage when it came to generating the revenue or generating the potential to be able to get the revenue for the NHS deal. So there might be a world where the propaganda compounded on the fact that the UK doesn't want to solely be reliant on Palantir, decides to split up the deal, and multiple organizations then are a beneficiary of this deal. Now, in my opinion, this would be a really idiotic thing to do. There is such a thing as having too many cooks in the kitchen. You cannot have that many organizations working on a federated data platform. You need a single actor that can get the job done. I mean, this would just be an absolute ridiculous mess if you had a ton of companies come together and be like, we're going to work on this, we're going to work on this, we're going to work on this. Maybe it decreases your burden of being reliant on one company, but it definitely doesn't increase the efficiency. And being reliant on one company, I don't think is the worst thing in the world, especially if that one company for $500 million is pretty cheap, given all the billions you've wasted over the past 20 years to fix an entire system in the span of 5 years. I mean, to me, it's an absolute no-brainer. But again, logic and rationality might not play a part in regards to Palantir being able to get this deal. Now, what would happen if Palantir does not get this deal? There's a couple of things. First, before I get into what won't happen, why would they be in running to get the deal in terms of some news stories? So I talked about in general why it's obvious for them to get the deal, but here's another reason why they should be able to get it. So Palantir got this deal in June of this year, 2023. NHS England awards Palantir a £25 million contract to transition to the federal data platform. So this is one of the qualitative things we saw back in June, where Palantir got a contract to transition the data, as you can see, to transition its current projects with the health service to the new federated data platform. So the current projects that the NHS is using, they are all dispersed and siloed. Palantir got about $34 million to be able to transition all of that to the federated data platform. My logic at the time was, okay, so if they're giving them $34 million just to transition all the data into the new thing, you're likely going to have them running the entire new thing, because why would they be transitioning the data into this new thing and then you give the new thing to Amazon? Like that just doesn't really make any sense. So that was one of the things that was happening. And then an article I wrote on dailypalantir.com about a couple months ago, a Palantir consortium of competitors throw in the towel. So there was a UK consortium that was bidding for the NHS deal. They basically said, we are not going to be doing the deal anymore. They took their bid out of the hat, if that's the right analogy. They stopped bidding for the contract because they realized that they wouldn't be able to get the job done. So two things over the past couple of months have proven to me that Palantir is more likely than not to get the deal. One is getting that $34 million contract from the NHS to transition data into the FDP. And second is all of the competitors coming together, which was a concern in March. By April 23rd, they said, actually, we're throwing in the towel. We're not going to be able to compete with Palantir. And so if that's the case, one could really think, all right, you know, what, like, is Palantir really not getting this deal? It's just hard to imagine them not being able to get the deal. But again, anything can happen. Now, here's what's going to happen to me, in my opinion, if Palantir doesn't get the deal. The first thing is that the company, I think, will be fine. There are other catalysts to look forward to. Obviously, the NHS deal is a very big catalyst. And by the way, if they don't get the whole 611 million, I think they will get some part of it. I don't know how much that would be worth, but they will get some revenue from it, even if it's not the entire 611 million. But if they don't get it, there's other catalysts to look for. There's the Titan contract award that we have to look forward to. There's the S&P 500 inclusion that we have to look forward to. And there's general ramp up of AIP. Alex Karp says there's 400 customers in the pipeline for that. That 400 turns into 1,000 over the next year and a half. Maybe, let's be generous, 500, 600, and all of them start monetizing and you start seeing the payments from there by H2 of 2024. That's another big catalyst as well. So the NHS deal is not make or break for Palantir by any sense of the imagination. I mean, Palantir has a long trajectory ahead of it in regards to commercial contracts, governmental contracts. International government revenue grew 33% year over year, which is amazing. We haven't seen international government revenue grow like that over the past over the past couple years, and U.S. commercial grew 20% year over year in terms of customer count as well. So like the idea that they don't have anything to look forward to in terms of ability to optimize new customers, go into new markets, and ultimately tap into different governmental agencies, like that's incorrect, right? The $611 million NHS deal does not define Palantir. So I believe the company will be fine. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of other trajectories that they can go through. It would suck if we don't get the deal because of propaganda, because that would be the only reason we don't get the deal. I mean, for goodness sakes, Indra Joshi, the head of AI and data strategy at the NHS, quit in February and joined Palantir. Like at some level, you've got to think, like if we don't get the deal after all the lobbying we've done, after all the commitments we put in place, it has to be because of propaganda. It's not because the technology is not in the right space. So that's the first thing. The company will be in a good space. The second thing is that the NHS will be screwed. I mean, what's going to happen if the NHS goes with this consortium of clients or these other characters to be able to do the job is that they're not going to get the job done. And the reason I feel confident saying this is not only because of the past couple of decades of the NHS not being able to fix its problems, but Microsoft, Google, Snowflake, they don't have the same political problems that Palantir does. So if they bidded for this contract, I think they would not get the pushback from the mainstream UK media press. There would be some pushback, but not as much as Palantir is getting. Why haven't they gotten the deal? I mean, why hasn't the NHS gone to Google and be like, can you do this? Why haven't they gone to Microsoft and be like, can you do this? Why are they stuck on working with Palantir? It's because they can't do it. They can't manage 67 million people's healthcare data. And quite frankly, they don't care about doing it because Google, 611 million, I mean, Google makes 611 million. Google made 72 billion last quarter. So 611 million they make every couple of days. 611 million comes into their accounts. They don't care that they're making a lot of money in other places to put the time, energy, and resources to be able to get, oh, by the way, 611 million over 5 years. So it's about 120 every year. You're not even getting, the full scope of the amount of money you would want to get if you're Google. It just doesn't make sense for them to work on it. Same thing with Microsoft. And so in regards to the NHS not being able to solve the problem, if Google, Microsoft, Snowflake, the biggest companies in the world, can't solve the problem because they haven't been able to do anything with the NHS and the NHS hasn't worked with them, what makes you think these random UK tech companies that have nothing in terms of Palantir's excellence around technology are going to be able to get the job done? The job's not going to get done. And Rishi Sunak will go down as another PM that had a pretty face, who was able to talk, but was not able to solve the existential problem in the United Kingdom, which is healthcare. And look, socialized healthcare, you can feel how you want to feel ideologically about if it's good or bad, but at the end of the day, it is a moral attempt to be able to make sure everyone, no matter what socioeconomic status they come from, has the right to healthcare. Even the United States doesn't believe in that. And so I personally think it's a very noble cause. Alex Karp also believes it's a noble cause that the UK is trying to solve. However, if you're not going to let the free market and the efficiencies of the free market play out, and you are going to artificially force certain institutions to act in the way you want them to act, i.e. socialize and nationalize healthcare, then the one equalizer to not letting the free market be as efficient as it can become, because by nature, by definition, you are not making it efficient by removing the free market, you've got to embrace technology, because technology is the equalizer when you get rid of the free market, especially when you have a moral attempt to do something good. You need technology to actually execute the attempt of your moral goodness in order for things to actually be good. And if you do not embrace Palantir's technology, Rishi Sunak is not really going to have a legacy, in my opinion. He's not going to be anything special to think about over the next decade. Final thing that's going to happen if Palantir doesn't get this deal is they're going to go for another deal. So in my opinion, if they miss out on the NHS contract, I believe they will go to other socialized healthcare systems around the world, maybe that are not as messed up as the NHS, but could definitely be better, and campaign to try to get one of their deals. And as a result of that, whether it's Denmark or Switzerland or Sweden or whatever it is, definitely not as big as the UK, but if they're able to actually build an entire operating system for a country, which is the reason why this NHS deal is so important. Forget the money. You're operating a country. Like, that is a big, big, big deal. If Palantir is able to do that for another country and show the NHS what they're missing out on, I think it's going to look really good on Palantir, and it's going to be really good ultimately for their trajectory. And eventually the NHS might come running back to them, or they may be able to set the precedent to be able to do this for other socialized healthcare systems all throughout Europe. So I think their obligation is to figure out how to go get a deal like this, because this NHS deal is such a slam dunk for them to be able to execute on, because we know they can execute on it. They just need to be able to get through the politics to be able to get the deal. And then I think, you can imagine many countries in the next 20 years running on a modern operating system using data-driven insights to make decisions to save people's lives. like Palantir. We have enough evidence of Palantir's ability to execute in the healthcare space. It's just a question now if Palantir is able to get to the point where they're able to do it for, an entire country. So those are my thoughts. At the end of the day, I think it would be a travesty for the NHS to not give Palantir this deal. I really think it would not be a good thing, but politics can get in the way. And if politics does get in the way, then there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, at the end of the day, all of us as retail investors, we don't have the media power that some of these conglomerates have in the United Kingdom. And if they make, look, I can't really blame Rishi if he's under a lot of pressure. He's going to do what is best for his political career. The problem is what's really best for your career is solving the NHS problem. And hopefully he has the guts to witness that. I still think we're going to get the deal, but if we don't get the deal, it would be because of the reasons I outlined in this video. And if we get 1/2 or 1/4 of the deal, it's not the worst thing in the world. If we don't get the deal, it will not be because of Palantir. It will be because of the UK's perception of Palantir, which will be a very sad thing. So we'll see what happens. But regardless, it's not going to be the end of the world. There's plenty of other things to look forward to. And we will move on and adapt as a company, as Palantir has always done. So those are my thoughts. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Please check out my Twitter in the description and follow. Email dailypalantir.com/subscribe. You can follow there and get a free email newsletter every day on Palantir. Thanks so much for listening and watching. I'll see you in the next one.